Hello, it's September 14th, 2024. We're at Celebrate Petworth. This is Dan Kerr. Could you tell me your name?
Julian or Julian, depending on what language we're speaking.
Excellent. And could you tell me about your relationship to Petworth?
Yeah, so my family came here from Medellin, Colombia, and I grew up between DC and Colombia, and in my adult life I've spent a couple years leaving DC, coming back to DC, and when you're used to being around people from all over the world, you start to feel like that's home. Like when I feel comfortable when I see people from everywhere. When I can go to a Caribbean restaurant, when I can go to an African American restaurant, when I can go to an Italian restaurant, and Petworth seems to have that. And I feel happy and comfortable here because I could walk around, look at people in the eyes, say hello, they'll say hello back, and yeah, that's what I like about Petworth.
Oh, that's terrific. So you grew up going back and forth between DC and Columbia.
Yeah, as a little kid.
And what neighborhood were you staying in DC when you arrived? Or when you were born, or wherever?
Yeah, so actually my family bounced around and then they stuck in Northern Virginia.
Okay.
And then we're always coming to Mount Pleasant because Mount Pleasant used to be the center of Latino culture. Not so anymore. That's I don't know. That's why I come to Petworth. It feels more. I get more of my Spanish speaking in Petworth than in Mount Pleasant. So.
Interesting. Okay. And when did you start seeing some of those changes, and like in terms of Mount Pleasant maybe not being that place for you, feeling so at home there?
I mean, I remember growing up, like in high school, Mount Pleasant would be a place where like everyone spoke Spanish. You could just go walk around and just assume that everyone's going to speak Spanish, eat food in Spanish, everything. And it's not so much like that anymore.
Okay. And now you find that more in Petworth?
Yeah, Petworth is a lot more diverse, and that makes my heart smile.
And how long have you been in Petworth?
About a year, yeah.
Okay. And so what are some of the places that really kind of attract you? What about, like, where are the places in Petworth that really make you feel like connected to the neighborhood?
I would say first and foremost my building. Everyone says hi to each other. It's nice to hang out. I love the park. The park is just like full of all these little kids running around, smiling, playing games, a lot of adults playing soccer, and I think just watching that, even when like my head is somewhere else, I need to go on a walk, and I leave my apartment, I go on a walk, and I walk by the park, and yeah, it feels good.
That's terrific. Okay, and I just want to think a little bit about that connection with Colombia. And you said you go back and forth, or have been back and forth a lot through your life, throughout your life. Like, how does living in Colombia kind of inform your perspective of DC, of Petworth, and vice versa?
I think the most interesting thing about growing up between two places, especially as a kid, is that like you start seeing the contradictions in each place, and you start to feel out of place in each place. And because you feel out of place in each place, you start to feel at home, oddly enough, when you're around other people who are a little bit more open-minded about about what the world can be, and they're curious about learning from each other, and they're like, well, I come from this culture from a land far away, but we're here today, and I feel like where I came from didn't necessarily have it right, and maybe yours didn't either, but like, what can we learn from each other? And for me, that's like finding those spaces where we could sit down and break bread and talk to each other. Yeah, that's really what I love about being in the area.
That's terrific. Okay, you raised this issue, and I'm just curious.
And it reminds me something like really relative to Petworth is that like my family's back in Colombia, and I was fixing my truck on Thanksgiving. I had nowhere to go on Thanksgiving. I was like, oh, something's wrong with my truck. I'm gonna go outside and fix my truck. And then randomly some guy, Mr. Kenny, where is Mr. Kenny from? Oh, I feel so bad. Where's Mr. Kenny from? Mr. Kenny is from, where's the place next to Zimbabwe with the big waterfalls? Zambia.
Yes.
He's from Zambia. And Mr. Kenny just saw me working on my truck, and Mr. Kenny's like, oh, nice truck. Did you build it yourself? I was like, yeah, I love my truck. And he's like, oh, I love Toyota trucks too. And he's like, well, what are you doing today? And it was Thanksgiving. And he just like invites me into his home with his beautiful family and his kids and his wife. And I'm like, a total stranger. I didn't know Mr. Kenny. He just invites me over, and we have this beautiful Thanksgiving dinner. And it's just like, that's just one of those things where, like, you know, they didn't grow up celebrating Thanksgiving, neither did I, but like, we're here breaking bread. We're here like sharing a meal. We're here getting to know each other. And like, I couldn't do that in Colombia. We don't have anybody from Zambia in Colombia. And so like, you know, I think that, like, for me, like that is probably my most favorite memory of Petworth. So thank you, Mr. Kenny, for opening your door for me at Thanksgiving here in Petworth.
And thank you for sharing that wonderful story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Hopefully.